But I went back to school for psychology, and my first degree was in theology, and then I pursued a degree in psychology and became what it really means to be a human being. What distinguishes a human being from animals? What distinguishes you from the animals? What makes you different? Humans share between 94 to 98% genetic similarity with the chimpanzee. Biologically, we're extremely genetically similar. The DNA of a chimpanzee and the DNA of a human being is 94 to 98% similar. What then gives us those 2 or so percent different from them? We share about 50% of our genes genetically with a cat, even with a rat. That's why they experiment on rats, do clinical trials on rat to understand human being. The brain of a rat is not much different from the brain of a human being. It's only tiny. And they study all of these animals to understand how human works. So the rat you kill, those mice that you kill in your house, your brain is similar to them. Their little brain have all the components that your brain has. What makes us different? What makes us human? Our biology came from the earth, just like the animals' biology came from the earth. But something about us came from above. And that's what makes us different. When God made the body of man, it came from the earth, just like the other animals. We depend on the nutrients of the earth just like every other animal. Even the plant depends on the nutrients of the earth, and we depend on the vitamin, the protein of the earth. They eat plant, they eat stuff just as we eat it to get the same nutrients, because we have the same biology. This is what has fooled men to believe that we evolved from them, because we have this similar biology. But human beings, we're different. The ability to reason separates man from the animal. This little area in our brain, and we have the largest brain. If you think of elephants, so large elephants are, our brain is larger than them. Humans have the largest brain. We have the largest frontal lobe in the front of our brain. And here we call it prefrontal cortex. It gives us the ability to think and to reason. So our ability to reason, to extrapolate, to think, to plan, separates us from the animals. Because of our ability to reason, everything you see around you, the building, the chairs, the mic, everything, the car you drive, the phone you use, is a result of human reason. With human reason and through human reason, we create the things that we have. No animals have ever created anything. They don't have the ability to reason. The birds have been building nests for thousands of years, exactly the same way and with the same material. For thousands of years, the bird builds nests, the wind blows it down, they build it again the same way in the same location with the same material. Look at men. Look at how far we have come. Look at the things. We can't fly, we don't have wings, yet we fly. We cannot see as far and as good as a dog or a cat, yet we can see an individual in their living room 1,000 miles, 100,000 miles away from where we are. We can't hear as well as an animal, but yet we can hear someone talking 5,000 miles away. We can't see as far as an eagle, yet we can build devices to see men walking on the moon. How is that possible? Through the ability. We can't run as fast as a cheetah, yet we can build devices and equipment that brings them, we can go hundreds of miles per hour, thousands of miles per hour from the earth to the moon. How is that possible? The ability to reason, to think. That's what makes us superior to the animals. The ability to reason. Put us in the realms of God's, because we were created in the image of God and after his likeness. So we resemble him somehow. He gives us ability that only he possesses. And this ability to reason is what sets human being apart from all the animals. If you lose the ability to reason, you become no different from the animals. That's what gives us the superiority over all animals. Yet, this sermon today is about the limits of reason. The reason has its limit, its boundary. Where it goes and it cannot go beyond that limit of reason. We can reason, but there's a boundary to it. We can't go beyond it. And that's what the sermon is about today. The limits of reason. But then, what is reason? Reason is the faculty, it's one of the faculty of consciousness. If you're not conscious, you can't reason. If you're not conscious, you're not aware of what's happening around you. If you're not conscious, you're not aware of your own thoughts. Consciousness allows you to know, to become aware of your surrounding and to be aware of your own thoughts. And because you're conscious, you can reason. Without consciousness, you can't. So reason then becomes a faculty of consciousness. Now, had it not been for reason, we wouldn't be able to do anything. Everything is a result of reason. You put in your clothes on this morning, you had a reason. What goes first, what goes, whatever it is, your reason. Now, with the capacity of reason, we can think beyond the range allowed by our sense perception. We can think beyond what we feel. We can think beyond what we see. Think of it. You're looking at me right now. So you're seeing me with your eyes, but you're reasoning beyond what you see. You are forming opinions beyond what you see. You're interpreting. You're thinking. You're forming thoughts. You're moving beyond what you see. You're interpreting, forming ideas. And that's the ability to reason. To move beyond what you feel and what you see. We take these for granted. And that's why if a person asks you, who are you? Beyond your name, beyond your gender, beyond where you live, you don't know what to say because you've never thought of truly who you are and what you're capable of doing. That's why we live lives below a certain level, because we don't know our ability and our capability. We don't know what it means to be created in the image and likeness of God. So we live lives beneath our ability and capability. We tell ourselves, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't reach that far. We limit ourselves. A man can only reach as far as his highest thought. You think about it. You can only reach as far as your highest thought. Whatever you want, you can achieve through the ability of reason. When I came to Canada, I was 24 years old. I didn't have high school. Never been to high school. I have never been to a high school. I don't have a high school diploma. Came to Canada at 24 years old. I could only work in a factory making $3 an hour. But I tell myself I would definitely love to go beyond where I was. So I decided to go back to college. Then I said to myself, how can I go back to college when I don't even have high school? But I didn't want to go to high school. So I bluffed my way into college. Computer engineering. I didn't even know what was entailed in such a program. I didn't know it was all mathematics and physics. So back then they didn't have internet, so they couldn't access transcripts. So I told them, it will come in the mail. I just need an opportunity to start, and they give me a test, and I think I may have passed the test. Got into college, had no idea. Got all my books, had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to do the maths, didn't have that background. But I told myself, I can't go back. I mean, I was failing in the first part of the semester. I had no idea. So I decided, you know what? I'm not going to quit. I'm going to go to the library, and I'm going to teach myself mathematics in this first semester. So I went to the library. I spent nights upon nights doing maths, studying maths, until I kind of get a hang of it, and by the second semester, it was on the dean's list. Graduated from college with a B or B+, and all the grades, get my job, went into my career. Then I decided I want to go back to university. I have some credits. I went to Bible college, finished my degrees, and then I went to university at 39 years old. I applied to university to do psychology. And today, without a high school diploma, I have 5 college diplomas, 2 bachelors, 3 masters, and 2 doctorate. Without. Tell me that created in the image of God, we read the passage of scripture, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yet we live beneath that. We tell ourselves we can't. In God's book, the only word can't, there's no can't in God's book. If there's a word in his book, is that I can't sin. And that's not possible either, because we are all sinners. So when we with not knowing who we are, if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you're capable of. And so we live beneath. And so this power of reason, yet there's a faculty that is beyond reason. There's a faculty. Now, reason is the most important thing. Reason is the most powerful capability and faculty the human being has. And there's something that is greater than that takes us beyond even reason. And that's the purpose of the message today. The limits of reason. Now, I'm proposing that reason has its limit. So the question is, what are the limits of reason? I'm going to list 2 limits of reason. 2 boundaries that reason cannot go beyond. So I've laid the foundation as to what reason is, the most powerful faculty the human person possesses. But there's something even greater than that. So you reach the limit of reason. Here's one of the, when you reach the limits of reason. When God does not make sense. When God does not make sense. When something doesn't make sense, your reason stops. As long as you can reason something out, it makes sense to you. The goal of reason is to make sense of your experience. If you can make sense of something, you're not frustrated. You're not confused. You're fine. You're settled. When you cannot make sense of something, your reason reaches its limit. And you become confused, frustrated, unsettled. So I'm saying, when your reason reaches its limit, when God does not make sense. And there will be times in your life when your reasoning comes to an end. It reaches its limit, and God doesn't make sense. And to every Christian, To every believer, there will be a time or times when God will not make any sense to you. Your reason cannot fathom His action. In Genesis 17, 15 to 21, we are meaning makers. Now, meaning is not something you find. Purpose is not something you seek. If you seek purpose, if you seek meaning, you'll never find it. And you'll be one frustrated person for the rest of your life. You're 80 years old and still trying to find out what your purpose is. Because purpose is not something external to you. Meaning is not something external to you. It's who you are. You impose meaning on the things in your life. And you do everything you do purposefully because your purpose. You don't find it. It's who you are. It's what you do. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. In Genesis 17, verse 15 to verse 21, then God said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall be from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Then God said, no, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this set time next year. Now, Genesis 18, 1 to 13. Now, before I go there, now, Abraham was 100 years old. Is that right? 100? Or he was 100 years old. And his wife was 90 years old. Reason tell you that this is impossible. A 90-year-old woman cannot get pregnant. That is biologically impossible. And here's why it's impossible. Now, a 100-year-old man, it's possible for him to impregnate a woman. It's not likely, but it can happen. All right? A man is not born with sperm. He creates them every day, millions of them every day. A woman is born with all the eggs she's ever need, over 400,000 eggs. By the time she's 30 years old, she only have like 30,000 from 400. As she gets older, her ability, by the time she's 35 and 40, she only have a few eggs left. She's born with them. She don't make them. They mature each month. By the time she reaches menopause, she now stop ovulating, which means she stop releasing eggs, mature eggs. If there is no mature eggs, she cannot get pregnant. So by time, when she reaches menopause, that's it. But she's 90 now. Menopause is about 45 to 55 years old. Between that age range, beyond 55, going 60, you can't get pregnant anymore. 70, 80, now she's 90 years old. She cannot She has stopped ovulating many moons ago. She cannot get pregnant. It's impossible. So when God says she's going to get pregnant, it's beyond reason. Reason tell me this is impossible. If this can happen, it's beyond reason. It's not reasonable. There is no logic in what God says. This is simple, not possible. From a human perspective, from a reason perspective, it cannot happen. But as I said, the title of the sermon is The Limits of Reason. When reason comes to its end, faith takes over. Genesis 18, 1 to 13. Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth tree of Mamre, as he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass on by your servant. Please let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I'll bring a morsel of bread, as you may refresh your hearts. After that you may pass by, inasmuch as you have come to your servant. They said, Do as you have said. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly, make ready 3 meals, a fine meal. Knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Then they said to him, Where is Sarah, your wife? So he said, Here in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life. And behold, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. That's what it means. She cannot have children. She has passed the age. She has stopped ovulating decades ago. And Abraham, being 100 years old, a man as 100 years old, lose the ability to do the things that a young man can do. So Abraham, Sarah's womb was dead, and Abraham's body was dead, and he said that in the New Testament. So both of them had passed the age when they were considering pleasure and childbearing in their lives. Reason tell them they have passed the age. Reason tell them these things doesn't happen to whole people at these age. They had never seen a miracle. They have never seen a resurrection. They have never seen what God can do. They have never understood that there was a dimension beyond reason. They have never experienced and extended themselves beyond reason. So where they were concerned was that reason was all they knew. Just as we, if we can't reason out something, we become frustrated. The reason has its limit. And the Lord said to Sarah, so Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure? And my Lord also is old. Reason, she's saying, reason. She's reasoning in her mind. This is not reasonable. This is not possible. I have passed the age. And my husband also have passed the age. He's old. He can't do anything. Men today are even 60 and they can't do anything. They're too old, their body is frail. And reason tell Abraham, I've passed the age even to think of pleasure. Reason. But there comes a time when reason reaches its limits. So if you can reason something out, you're not exercising faith. You're exercising reason. Reason, faith takes you beyond the limits of reason. If you can't, because God will tell you to do things that reason cannot comprehend. There's no way that reason can work out the details. That's what reason does. Reason works out details. But when God says something, that he's going to do something, no matter how you think about it. Remember, when God brought Israel out of Egypt, he brought them to a point, a place where there was no escape. There were mountains on either side. There was a river, a sea before them, and behind them was the Egyptian army. Reason told them there was no way to escape. Reason said, you can't scale this mountain on the left, you can't scale this mountain on the right, and you can't go forward. You don't have any boats. And you can't go backward. There's an army. So reason says we are trapped. Reason says there is no escape. I have reasoned it out. But reason has its limit. Where God brings you in your life, and you look on either side and you look around you, you don't see any possibilities. There are no opportunities. When reason says the right is blocked, the front is blocked, the back is blocked, the left is blocked, I have no way out. Reason reaches its limit. But there's another faculty beyond reason. In Genesis 22, 1-2, another test of reason. Now it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. Then he said, take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. Here again. So God gave him a son. Son of promise. God said, through this boy, you'll have nations. And then God said to him, kill him. Now, Abraham know that, look, this is the only son I have, and God said he's going to be son of promise. And then God said, kill him. You prayed for a job. You prayed for a job. And you believe God's going to give you a job. You go for the interview, get the job, and you testify that, oh, God was so great, he gives you a job. 2 weeks later, you're fired. How is it possible? God give it to me, and then he takes it away from me. You can't fathom it. You're confused. What's going on, God? Reason has its limits. Reason has its limit. God is not he's a rational God, but he sometimes takes you beyond the realm of the physical. With reason, you use your faculty. You use your mental and intellectual faculty. God resides not just in your faculty, but in a whole different realm of existence. And sometimes he takes you from the physical, from the intellectual, into that realm. And you have to think like him, see like him, understand like him. And you and I possess the ability because we were created in his image. But because we have lived so long on the natural plane, it's difficult for us to move beyond the physical. And that's where God wants us. That's where miracles happen. When he said, when these lepers came to him for healing, to Jesus, Jesus said, go show yourself to the priest. Only the priest could verify that you were a cleansed of leper. The priests were like doctors. You go to them, they say, oh, you're cured. You're not cured unless they tell you you're cured. So they came to Jesus, and Jesus said, go to the priest and show yourself to the priest. He never said you're healed. He never lifted his eyes to heaven and said, may this leper leave your body. All he said, hey, go and show yourself to the priest. So when he said to them, they were still lepers. When they turned away from him, they were still lepers. As they were walking toward the priest, they were still lepers. When they reached the temple, they were still lepers. They saw themselves lepers still. But Jesus said, go. Don't look at your body. Don't reason with what your eyes see. Don't reason what you smell. Do as I say and show yourselves to the priests. So maybe when they reached the temple door, they were still lepers. And the priest came out and looked at them in a distance and said, why are you here, guys? Well, Jesus said to come and show ourselves to the priest because we were lepers. The priest said, I don't see any leprosy. Go, you're clean. As they were going, the Bible said, beyond reason. He didn't rub them with anything. He didn't throw anything in them. He just said, go. What they see is reason. What they believe is faith. Isaiah 45:15, truly you're a God who hide yourself. O God of Israel, the Savior. Sometimes God hides himself. You don't see him, you don't hear him, but he still works. He still works. Now, the second reason, the second boundary of faith, when you reach the limits of faith, of reason rather, when you reach the limits of reason, what do? You need to take the leap of faith. Faith is not a leap in the darkness. It's a leap. Now, without reason, you can't have faith. Your faith is without reason. But without reason, you can't have faith. Let's go back to Abraham. When Abraham took his son on that mountain and he lifted up the knife to kill his son, what did Abraham said? He knew that God would provide a lamb. He knew that God would provide an offering, a sacrifice. Why? What was his faith based on? The fact years ago when he didn't have a child, Abraham knew that God was able to raise the dead. Abraham knew that God was able to raise his son, because raising his son was not the first resurrection. Remember what Sarah said? And Abraham said his body was dead. In the New Testament, Abraham testified he knew his body was dead. And Sarah was double dead, if there is such a thing, because she was past the age and she was barren. She was barren and she was past the age. She has been barren all her life. Maybe her tube was blocked or whatever that made her barren. And God removed everything. Reason couldn't do that. But now that God did that for Abraham, God raised him as a dead man, give him life to impregnate his wife. He said, though his body was dead. So now Abraham has a testimony of what God did when he was 100 years old and his wife was 90. So now, years later, when God told him to kill his son, he believed that God was able to raise the dead because of what God had done in the past. So here is where reason meets faith, and faith takes off. He reasoned that if God could do that for me, he will do this. So when you reach your point in life when you're struggling with reason, think of what God did in the past. And your faith to be built on what he has already done and what he's capable of doing. If he is capable of raising my dead body and giving it life to impregnate my barren and dead wife, he's able to raise my son. So let me do what he says. So now, taking the leap of faith when reason doesn't make sense. You see, that's when God doesn't make sense. He says something that reason cannot calculate. He brought them to that trapped place. Mountains on either side, the sea before them, and the army behind them. This doesn't make any sense, God. Why did you take us out to kill us here? Because truly there's no escape. This does not make any sense, God. God brings you to a place where your reason breaks down. You can't fathom why. Why? You told me to do this and I'm doing this and all hell is breaking loose. Why? It doesn't make any sense, God. When God doesn't make sense, it simply means your reasoning has broken down. And now you're entering another realm. His realm. Beyond the senses. Beyond what you can see with your eyes and hear with your ears and feel with your senses. When you reach that realm, you understand who God truly is and what he's capable of. The reason why we don't see miracles today, as it was in the olden time, is because we have come to live in the realm of the senses. We have come to depend on the conveniences that life provides for us. My head hurt me, I know there's an aspirin or a Tylenol or something I can take. I feel sick and I know my doctor is capable of helping me. And even when I get prior, tomorrow I go to my doctor anyway. We live in the realm of the senses. And people who are in different parts of the world who don't have access to the conveniences that we have experience more of the power of God because they have to depend not on their senses but on faith. And the days coming, make no mistake about it, the days are coming when the church will begin to experience again the latter rain, the power that once was given to the church. When the conveniences are taken away from the church, when you cannot buy or sell, when you cannot do what you can because the power of the Antichrist is reigning and the church has to go underground. You cannot go to the doctor because you don't have the mark of the beast. You cannot buy or sell because you don't have the mark of the beast. You can't do none of those things. You have to depend now not on reason but on faith. It's coming, and we can see that has already begun. The mark of the beast is not yet established. The vaccine is not the mark of the beast because the beast is not yet here. The mark must follow after he's here. But it's telling us the power that the government has. It's the beginning of showing how powerful the enemy and the power of the government. They can take away your opportunity overnight. It's telling us a framework is already set. It's being set. So when the beast comes on the scene, the Bible said in Revelation 13, all the world whose name are not written in the book of life shall follow him. And the church will be persecuted. The church have to go underground. The building will be taken away. No opportunity, no license to do anything. It is then that the power of God, when you begin to live outside the realms of reason, it's coming. And many parts of the world, it's already there. So now, here's what one philosopher, 19th century philosopher says. He believed that a chasm separates human reason from God. And we must make a leap of faith across that chasm. Between reason and faith, there's a chasm. And you got to jump across that to be in the realm of God. He's the one who coined the term leap of faith. Soren Kierkegaard, he coined the term leap of faith. In 1846, he described one's willingness to believe God without being able to prove even his existence. You don't have to, there's nowhere in the Bible that proves the existence of God. It just states it. It states that God exists, and that's it. You believe by faith. You were not there when he did anything. You accept it by faith. You see, reason operates well in the realm of the physical, but breaks down when it comes to the realm of faith. So you see why? Why is it that reason cannot take us beyond that chasm? Here's why. Human reason is influenced by emotions and bias. Your emotion goes up and down, up and down. You feel this way now, you feel that way now, and it's easy to move back and forth and oscillate and vacillate. Faith is constant. Human reason is a tool. Human reason is a tool for consistency. Human reason is governed by logic. Logic and God sometimes doesn't make sense. If something is logical, it makes sense. If it's not logical, we become confused. Human reason can process so much before it becomes overloaded. You become overwhelmed when there's too many things to reason and to process. You see, reason has its limit. Faith has no limit. Faith has no limit. There is no limit to what God can do. Genesis 22. We mentioned that already when Isaac said to his father, here are the warriors that, where is the sacrifice? In Romans 4, here's what happened, 18 to 20. Against all hope, Abraham in hope believed, and so became the father of many nations. Just as it had been said to him, so shall your offspring be. Let me read that again. Without weakening his faith. Now watch this now. Without weakening in his faith, he faced the fact that his body was as good as dead. He said his body was dead. He was 100 years old. That was a fact. That was reason. He understood that. He was 100 years old. And he says his body was dead. He faced that fact. He faced that fact that he was unable to do what a young man could do. He understood that. That was reason. But here's what happened now. Since he was about 100 years old, and that Sarah's womb was also dead, he faced these rational facts. He understood them with reason. Yet, here's what now. He's moving beyond the realm of reason, beyond what he saw, beyond what he knew as a fact. The Bible said now, yet he did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God, but was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to God, being fully persuaded that God had the power to do what he had promised. He looked on his body. He was aware of his condition, and he stated it. He said, my body is dead, and Sarah's womb is dead. That's a fact. But yet he said, yet I will not allow my reasoning to compromise my ability to understand the capability of God. So when you look at your circumstances, reason says this can't work. Reason said this can't happen. You face that fact. Don't ignore that fact. But said, yet I know what my condition is. I know logically it can't work from a logical perspective. But I'm not going to allow my reason to stop me from believing, from making that leap of faith beyond the chasm between reason. I am not going to allow what my eye sees, what my mind tells me, to block what I know what my God can do. He has a resume. He has shown us his capability. He has shown us what he's capable of doing, his ability. Our faith is not in the object. Our faith is in God. Our faith is not in the healing or in the miracle. Our faith is in he who does that. Now, I want to draw an example in closing. When a woman gets pregnant, when she becomes pregnant, the fertilized egg takes about 6 or 7 days as it rolls down the fallopian tube or the oviduct into her uterus. 7 days later, it's like a mulberry, and it implants itself inside the uterine walls. The cells in the uterine walls and the cells in that embryo creates a form what is called a placenta. The placenta becomes the go-between between the mother and the child. The child's blood and the mother's blood doesn't meet. The child is separated from the mother inside the womb. The only thing that connects the child to the uterine walls is a placenta. The mother feeds the child, and the mother takes the waste from the child's blood and passes it out through her own body. Yet there is no physical connection between the two blood. There is a gap between the blood of a child and the blood of the mother through the placenta. So when the child doesn't breathe in the womb, the child receives oxygen from the mother's blood into its own blood. The child passes waste to the molecules of its blood into the mother's blood and goes and processed into the mother. Nutrients and everything else passed on the mother's blood, so the molecules jumps across the gap into the placenta, into the child's blood without the blood touching each other. I want you to think of this as faith. You can't touch God without faith. You can't reach him without faith. Faith is what he gives us. He gives man faith so he can deal with us. We can't touch his holiness. If we touch him, we die, no matter how perfect we are, because we have already sinned. So he gives us something so we can touch him through this process of faith. We can reach him any moment. He feeds us through faith. He empowers us through faith. And through faith he forgives us. So we ask for forgiveness, and all our uncleanness is moved away through faith. Faith is the go-between between God and man. You can't get forgiveness. You can't get empowerment. You can't get anything from God without faith. Without faith, it is impossible. So faith is the divine placenta through which we are fed and through which God takes our uncleanness and throws it away. It is the go-between until that day when God gives us birth into the realm of immortality. And then we can live on our own in his presence. So faith takes away when reason breaks down. So when God says something and you don't understand it, don't worry about it. Just trust him anyway. You don't understand it. You don't need to understand it. He has proven himself throughout history for his people. And he will always continue to prove himself to you as his child. No need to be frustrated, because that's what reason does. You're frustrated. You think of any time you're frustrated or confused is when you don't understand something, when it doesn't make sense. When God doesn't make sense, just sit back and relax and say, God, it's your time now, because I don't understand this. Do what just you, only you can do. Today may God bless you as you understand that human reason is the most powerful thing we have, but it has limits. And when it reaches its limit, God may not make sense, because it doesn't make sense at time with human reasoning, and he will come through. Faith is that placenta. Faith is a go-between. Faith is that step you take when the bridge is no longer there, and you step anyway because you know that God will uphold you. May God bless and keep you.